we'll be moving on to the elites. This section's ridiculous. This section has the most options in the entire book, and it really sucks. I mean, a lot of these guys I would love to bring, but I can only take 3 elite slots, and I wish I could take like 6 or something. Now I could bring all the people I want to bring from the elite section. So first off, Hive Guard. They have Instinctive Behavior, Lurk, and they're 50 points each. These guys are awesome. They are reliable. They have a really good gun that's strength 8, so they can take out kind of the medium and light vehicles very well. And they don't need line of sight. They can hide somewhere behind cover, and they can still shoot things. They don't need line of sight, which is freaking awesome. And they also ignore cover saves with those shots. So shooting at flyers with these, or with skimmers, is really good. And they're not fragile either. They're pretty tough, toughness 6, and they can hold their own in a combat. Like, don't have them charge willy-nilly into the enemy. That's not what they're for. They're for sitting in the back and shooting at tanks. But don't think it's the end of the world when they get charged, because oftentimes that's what will happen to them. So, your opponent will try and charge them and kill them. That's the Hive Guard. Lictors, they have Instinctive Behavior, Lurk. They're 65 points a mile. These guys could be so awesome. They're so close to being awesome. They have really 2 positions in this army. And I'll go over to the other one in a second. But the first one is kind of like a leader assassinator. He's an assassination dude, because he has the ability to just... he starts in reserve. They start in reserve all the time. And when they arrive, they can just be moved to 1 inch of an enemy model. And of course, what hurts about that is they can't assault when they arrive. So all of a sudden, you're 1 inch away or whatever from an opponent, and you're like, well, now what do I do? They do have a shooting attack. It's kind of weak. It's got rending. So you can show up, kind of shoot, and maybe get a few kills. But really, you would love to get these guys in assault. These guys can't really take on HQs, a lot of the more tougher HQs, but they can take on like the sergeants and those kinds of things, the more elite groups, and they can also take on. These guys are really awesome for infiltrating into the back, where your opponent has some artillery unit that's just shelling away at your guys, and these guys can just show up right next to them and take care of them. But their other ability is that they help with reserves, because when they arrive, they can give, when they're on the field, they can give a +1 to your reserve rolls. However, it does not activate the turn that they arrive, and so that ability doesn't show up till turn 3, because turn 1 they're in reserves, they have to be, and then turn 2 at best they're on the field, and then turn 3 that's when their ability actually turns on. And so, yeah, I mean, it could help. And I should say it gives +1, and then also they deep strike if they're within 6 inches of the lictor, then they don't scatter. That can be so good. But again, that doesn't happen until turn 3, and there is a chance that all your reserves are already on the field. So that big guy you needed to drop in at this certain point is already on the field. So that's what really hurts these guys. If their ability activated the turn they arrive, that'd be great. But it's not that way. It's not. Death Leaper, he is the character lictor. He has Instinctive Behavior, Lurk, but he's also fearless. So he lurks, but he doesn't run away from things. It's an interesting combination. He's, like I said, he's kind of an uber lictor. This guy could take on HQs, I would think. He has toughness 4, he's a little weak, and he's not Eternal Warrior, so all the force weapons and instant death things HQs have, you might need to be worried about, but he's Initiative 7, so he might go first in most cases. But he has the same abilities as a lictor, he shows up an inch away, but he can't assault. That's just the universal rule of the game now, which really sucks and hurts him. But what's really nice about Death Leaper is that if your opponent HQ is a Psyker, he has an ability that at the beginning of the game you roll a D3, and that HQ will lose that amount of leadership, whatever you roll. So up to 3 leadership, and that can be devastating for a Psyker. you know, all of a sudden you have to make those rolls on a 7. So it just that can really hurt your opponent. But again, this guy is competing for the elite slot, and there are other better options in this list. He does have rending on 5s and 6s, which is nice. But again, he most likely won't make it to assault because he'll show up and your opponent will be like, oh no, and turn around and shoot him. I'll talk about that real quick. This army has a lot of psychological attributes. Like I said, with Death Leaper, you know, he could show up and all of a sudden your opponent will turn all of his guns at the Death Leaper because, I mean, there are just things in here that are just that scary. And that's what happens with the monstrous creatures. You know, all the guns will turn towards that monstrous creature before it gets to them and kills them. And that's just a lot of fun. There's one model in the elite section, we'll get to him in a minute, that is the best at this. And yeah, seeing your opponent's face go, just their spirits drop when this guy shows up, and I'll get to him in a second. Next after the Death Leaper is 140 points, so he's the most expensive elite section, and there's just better guys. Venom Thropes are really good. They're really good for like monstrous creature armies. They're 55 points each. They have feed. They actually have feed, but they give a 5-up cover save to everybody within a few inches of them. I think it's 6. Pretty sure it's 6. And so because he, you know, expels this gas cloud that gives everyone near him cover, and that can be really nice for your monstrous creatures army. But yeah, that's his purpose. He just gives cover everywhere. There is this downside that normal cover right now in 6th edition is a 5-up. So this guy just kind of gives you a 5-up in the open, and that can be nice, but it's really you know, strategic if you want him or not, or if you really need something else to deal with. Because then you won't need a Venom Thrope. You'll just have your guys running from cover to cover to get that save anyway. But Venom Thropes are, I mean, they're not bad to have in your army. They're a good choice. Zone Thropes. I like Zone Thropes. They're my favorite. These guys are ridiculous. They are, in fact, Synapse creatures. They are the only Synapse elites. And they are also Psychers. They have 2 abilities. Warp Blast and Warp Lance. Warp Blast is a Strength 5, AP 3, Small Blast. And that's pretty good. But the Warp Lance is where Zonethrop shines because he is our heavy armored attacker. Because it's a lance and it's a Strength 10, AP 1 lance. So that thing shoots at a tank. That tank will most likely get damaged and most likely wrecked or blown up, or just bad stuff happens when a Zonethrop shoots at a tank. They're 60 points each, and so I like bringing Zonethrops. I like them a lot, and if you don't necessarily need all that anti-tank fire, you can swap out their powers for Biomancy and have them just casting blessings and maledictions everywhere. Because each Zonethrop in a brood, there can be up to 3, takes separate abilities, and they can target whoever they want. Now if you do a Witchfire ability, then obviously that whole brood's other Witchfire abilities will have to be at that one target that you shot at. But if you have Blessings and Maledictions, they can shoot at those wherever they want, which is awesome. I love Zonethropes. I like them a lot. I used to not like them, but now I do. Here's the one I was telling you about, the Doom of Malantai. This guy's the most powerful guy in our book, in the Tyranid book. He's 90 points, so he's super cheap. This guy can really shines when you give him a drop pod, though. So I always consider him just like a 130 point model. Our drop pods are 40 points. I always give him a drop pod. Always, always, always. I never bring him without one, because what he does is he has a 6-inch bubble around him. And if you have an opponent unit within that bubble, they have to take a leadership test on a 3d6. And if they fail that, that's how many wounds they take. They can't take armor saves because of this. They can take invuls and cover saves, but no armor saves. So, yeah, that can kill a lot of people by itself. I've had to do a Malantai drop in and just level armies. This guy kills armies by himself, and that's not even the half of it, because every kill he makes adds to his wounds. He starts with 4 and he can go up to 10. He can go up to 10, and he has a 3-up invul. And very quickly, Zoanthropes have a 3-up invul. I almost forgot. But the Dual Malantite has a 3-up invul too. So not only can he be 10 wound 3-up invul creature, but his strength is equal to his wounds. And so he can have strength 10, and which is ridiculous. And then, if that wasn't the worst of it, he has a psychic ability. Where is it? There it is. Cataclysm, which is a large blast, AP1 psychic shooting attack that is equal to his strength. So up to 10 strength blast. Yes. Yes. You heard me right. Dual Malantite can just wreck things, especially now with the move away from all mech armies with tanks and stuff to a lot of gun lines with infantry. Because you just give him a drop pod, he drop pods in, and he's in like the middle of the army. You want this guy in like the middle of the army, and he'll just eat people's souls. That's the lore behind what he does, is that he's consuming souls while he does this. And yeah. And then what's really good is, you know, he might die the turn after he arrives, but he will cause some kills, and he will force a reaction from your opponent, because otherwise he'll just stay in the back and keep sucking souls and just causing lots of problems for your opponent. This guy's great. And he's really hard to kill. He is toughness 4, so he can be instant kill quite easily, but it's just getting past that 3-up invul that's going to be really tough. Now, some people will swap out his ability and roll on Biomancy to try and get Iron Arm, because then he gets Eternal Warrior, and then he is literally indestructible, because he'll get 10 wounds, Eternal Warrior, and you will never chew through that with a 3-up invul. I mean, it's possible, obviously. It's a game of dice, but no, it won't happen. That's really a long shot. In my opinion, I wouldn't do that. Even if I could guarantee I would get Iron Arm, I wouldn't do that. It's just not fun having an indestructible model on the field that's just leveling an army by himself. That's not very fun. Another one is to get the Primaris power in Telepathy, which is the Psychic Scream. It's pretty much his ability. It forces a unit to take a leadership on D3, and they lose wounds, and they can't take armor or cover saves because of it. It's actually better than what he does, because what he does, you can actually take cover saves from it, but the ability you can't, that Psychic Scream. And so then he can just be a really super soul sucker. But I actually like keeping his Cataclysm, because then if he's at strength 10, then he can pretty much shoot at whoever he wants. He can shoot at a tank, he can shoot at infantry, and I mean, he can shoot at anything. That ability also hurts him, because it gives him D3 wounds. But you must remember, even if you lose 3 wounds, if that blast hit a group of infantry and it killed some infantry, he gets life from that. He gets some wounds from that. Any wound he causes gives him extra wounds. So yeah, the Doom of Malantite is ridiculous. I expect him to get more expensive in the next book, or totally change, because right now he's an auto-include. Always include the Doom of Malantite in your book. Now after that glowing review, we have Pyrovores. No. These guys have instinctive area of feet. They're 45 points a model, and they're our template weapon. They're our flamers, and they're not good. Their flaming is not that good. It's like strength 5 or strength 4, AP 5. No. Their close combat weapon ignores armor, but they only have 1 attack, and they explode if they die instantly. I mean, if it wasn't the fact that these Pyrovores weren't that good in the first place, they are competing for like a slot with the Zoanthrope or the Hive Guard or the Dual Malantite, and it's like, unless you want to bring them for fun, always think that when I'm talking about this, you could bring Pyrovores for fun, and they would be fun to play with, especially if they exploded in your opponent's face. That'd be hilarious. But I mean, yeah, in a competitive setting, these guys just don't work. They do not. That's all I can say about them. The last one, Youngirl Genestealer Brood. I like these guys. They're really good. They're 23 points a model. They're expensive, but what makes them awesome is that they They have the ability called Dormant, and what that means is that they start in reserves, and you pick a terrain piece on the field. It has to be an area terrain piece, so you got to talk to your opponent like, hey, I'm bringing you my girls, what counts as area terrain and what doesn't. And you pick one, you write it down secretly, and the turn that they arrive from reserves, you show that to your opponent, and that's where they will show up. They will not scatter. You just place them within that area terrain as long as it's an inch away from an opponent's model. So you can be really strategic with these guys. And then the best part is when they arrive, they can assault. That is a rule in their rules, and it's been FAQ'd. They can assault the turn they arrive because it is explicitly written so that they can. And that's freaking awesome. Best case scenario, turn 2, they show up and they can assault anything that's near them. I love doing that. And then they also have an ability called Ultra Form, where they can up their strength, up their toughness, or up their attacks. And you have to choose one each assault phase, and it has to change. You can't do consecutive times each time. And that goes into the lore that they're really unstable genetically and they'll change. But I like them. They have running claws. They won't go up against the HQs very well, but they can tear apart most anything else. Yeah, I like Young Girls. I like them a lot. Oh, they have brute telepathy. What that means is all Genestealers have this. They're not subject to instinctive behavior. They kind of act normal. They act like normal units. They have leadership 10. And so that's really good, but you know they'll take a leadership test if they fail in the assault and all that because they're not fearless. But they don't have to be. They act normal, which is nice too. So yeah, that's the elite section. On to troops. This is where like I said, the elites just have the best options. But everything else is kind of like, eh. First one are Tyranid warriors. They're 30 points each, and they're synapse creatures. That's really nice. 3 wounds. I mean, these guys are good. They are really good. You can pretty much kit them out how you want. They can be shooting or they can be close combat, and they will excel at whatever they do. More so close combat than shooting, but they'll still do good in shooting. What hurts about them is that they're toughness 4, and so it really sucks to have a 3 wound, 30 point model, actually more than 30 points, most likely because you can upgrade them. But those 3 wounds going away instantly. And that really hurts. Especially when you can bring these other options, which will die by that same blast, but they're not as expensive, and so you can bring more of them because Tyranids are a swarm army. You want more and more models on the field. These guys can have a Lash Whip Bone Sword, which can be useful, but like I said, you gotta be careful with Toughness 4. You gotta be careful with these guys. But I live and die by them. I've used them in my battle reports, and they've done good work. These guys are tough when your opponent doesn't have like a Strength 8 blast or anything to hit them with, because that's only time when they evaporate. All the other times, chewing through 3 wounds is really hard. And so they have good survivability in that instance. And you can bring up to 9 of them in a group. I would love to see that. That'd be great. That'd be terrifying to behold. But yeah, Tyranid warriors, kind of good, kind of bad, in the middle. They're gray. The next option are Genestealers. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. These guys used to be absolute beasts on the table, and now they're not because they are a completely assaulting unit. They have 0 shooting ability. Literally, their BS is 0. So they cannot shoot anything. They're 14 points a mile, so they're expensive, and they're really soft. They only have a 5-up save. So yeah, they're gonna die in the shooting. They're gonna die trying to get to your opponent. They're gonna die in snap fire. Yeah. Now, if Genestealers survive into the assault, they will rip things apart. They have running claws, and you can give them the Sighting Talons and poison and adrenal glands and make them literally monsters in close combat. But it's getting there. That's the problem. The one thing that almost redeems Genestealers is that one of the Genestealers in that group, or the brood, I should say, is you can upgrade to a Broodlord. Broodlords are awesome. They're a bit tougher, but still only a 4-up save. Plenty to kill them there. But Broodlords are psychers. And so I would always swap out a Broodlord psychic abilities. They're just not that good. But give him Biomancy, and then he can get like Iron Arm or Warp Speed or anything really, and it's awesome. Except for any shooting psychic ability, it renders that ability useless because he has 0 BS, and you can't re-roll it. They FAQ'd that. If you get a shooting ability on a Broodlord, you won't be able to roll it because you can't use it. So that really sucks. So you're really hoping for like the blessings or maledictions in the Biomancy table. But all in all, Broodlord almost redeems Genestealer brews. Like I would bring them for fun and see what happens. We actually had a game where my buddy had 2 gigantic Genestealer groups with Broodlords. And you'll just see that they just melt away from the shooting, because I had a mostly shooting army and I was just shooting away, and I was just killing so many models that he could not move forward to assault. And by the time he did get into assault, my Termagants were actually able to handle themselves. And I'll talk about them. They're not anywhere near as good as Genestealers are in assault, but there was just so few of them, of the Genestealers left, that they could not handle it. The next entry in this section is my Seg-Spore, which is our drop pod. You can give this one upgrades, but don't. Unless you have points that you have that you can't spend anywhere else. But my Seg-Spore, their one job is just to deep strike whatever cargo they're carrying into the battlefield, like the Dual Mountai. That's it. You can give them guns and stuff, but they already have a gun. And most of the time, I forget about my Seg-Spore when I drop it in, because all of a sudden I'm like focusing on my Dual Mountai that popped out. Not so much the pod. But like I said, if you had points somewhere that you had absolutely no idea what to do with, you can't spend anywhere else, then I guess you can give them guns. But my Seg-Spore's job, drop pod some in there, 40 points. The next one, troop section, is the Termagant, and this one's the one where if you have, for every brood of Termagants, you can bring a Tervagon. The smallest group of Termagants is 10, the largest is 30. They're 5 points a model, so they're really cheap, which is awesome. There is an option to give them Devours, which is a gun upgrade. It doubles their points. It's 5 points per model for that Devour, so all of a sudden that Termagant brood's 10 points a model each. But you're gaining an attack, because Devours are Assault 3. And that can be really devastating. If you watch my battle reports, I use them a lot, and they are awfully good. They are really good. You can give them poison for 1 point a model, but the Tervagon can give that whole group of Termagants poison for free. I mean, it's not for free. You buy it on Tervagon, which is 10 points, but then it's free to any other Termagant in the vicinity. And I always forgot to mention, I forget about that rule all the time. When the Tervagon dies, it does damage to the nearby Termagants. So it's kind of a win-lose situation where it's like, okay, I want to stay by the Tervagon to get all these bonuses. But if he dies, then all of a sudden my groups take damage. I'm going to look that up real quick. Remember what the damage is. I don't remember. It's like a D3 or something. Where are you? Too far. There you are. Yes. All Termagant broods within 6 inches immediately suffer 3d6 strength 3 AP, nothing hits. So yeah, that can cause issues. You can take your armor save against that, but these guys only have 6 up armor save, which is not that good. So yeah, word of warning about that one. That's a Termagant. These guys are pretty much your run-of-the-mill troops right now, because they are shooting, and shooting is the way to go. But yeah, Termagants are pretty good. Next on the list is the Hormagant. Hormagant's actually good. He is a purely assaulting guy, but the reason why he's still good is because he's cheap. He's 6 points a model, and you can give him Toxic Sacks for 2 points a model, making them 8 points per model. And I wouldn't run them any other way. Hormagants can be quite devastating. I mean, yeah, they're assaulting, but there's just so many of them. and they're really fast. They can have an ability that lets them re-roll their runs and get the highest option, and yeah, these guys can get to your opponent very quickly and cause serious damage. These guys have instinctive behavior. Termagants also has instinctive behavior. They lurk, but Hormagaunts feed, and that can be a blessing and a curse, because I mean, obviously with feed, then they get rage, so they'll get a 2-up attack on charge. That puts them up to 4. If you had a full group of Hormagaunts on rage, which is 30, 4 attacks each, that's 120 attacks. No joke. Anything would die from that. So it's the way of the dice with these guys, and they do a fair job with it. But like I said, then they lose Fearless, and their leadership's only 6, so they can run away very easily. So that, you know, take that how you will. Could be good, could be bad. I personally wouldn't plan that. I would keep them in synapse all the time. That way they're just fearless, and that would just help them in the assault anyway. The last entry is the Ripper Swarm. They're 10 points each, and they're not good. They're a swarm. They're a tar pit unit, so their only use is to get an assault with a person and just tie them up for a turn, and they will not kill anything. They will just die. I can't really comment on Whipper Swarms that much because I haven't used them, but from what I hear, bring Termagants. I mean, yeah, the points that you would spend on Ripper Swarms would be so much better spent in a Termagant Brood or Hormagaunt Brood or elsewhere. Yeah. Anyways, that's all I can say about that. That's it for the troops. Next is the fast attack.